On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, we're a week out from Media Day, and as the season draws near, what this team is going to look like is anything but certain.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, September the 22nd, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, link in the description of the podcast. Free to join. As always, we'd love to see you over there in our listener community. And we're off and running here. I'm back from vacation, a week out for Media Day, season drawing near, 1 month until the regular season kicks off down in Atlanta. That's a ton of fun. And we are going to kick off a two-part episode here. I guess not like two-part episode. 2 episodes covering the sort of opposite sides of the coin, if you will. Today, I'm going to take a look at the biggest uncertainties surrounding this Raptors team going into the year. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at the things that are the most bankable, the stuff we feel good about actually coming through the way we think they're going to come through this year. But today, it's uncertainty time. It's the stuff that we don't yet know which way it's going to go. The stuff that, depending on the way it does go, is going to dictate, in many ways, how this season plays out start to finish. We'll talk Brandon Ingram, of course. That's the cop-out one. He's the hurt guy who hasn't played a game with a team yet. Lots of uncertainty there. We're going to talk about the defense as well, which looked pretty good for stretches last year, but how real is that? Can they uphold it over the course of a full year? Plus, who closes games? And tied into that, how does the relationship between the mandate to win games versus player development, which is still very important, coexist on this team? We'll get into all that on today's show. Let's start, of course, with, again, the cop-out answer when you ask, what's the thing that's uncertain about this team? It's Brandon Ingram, of course. And look, when you have a team that hasn't played any games together, whose best offensive player has yet to suit up for the team after being traded for, 8 months ago now, it invites a whole lot of uncertainty into your mix going into the season. And the health thing, I suppose, with Ingram, we'll get into the on-court uncertainties as well, but the health thing is, number one, he's not a guy who's been particularly healthy throughout his NBA career. 18 games played last season. Would he have played more had he been playing for teams that were trying in the Pelicans and later the Raptors? Maybe. I don't know. He was still in pain by the end of last season. Would he have played through that pain if he was playing for a team that was trying? Maybe, probably. I don't know. But 18 games is 18 games. The year before that, 64. Year before that, 45. Before that, 55, 61, 62, 52, 59. You got to go back to his rookie season in 2016-17 to find a season where Brandon Ingram played 70-plus games. He played 79 as a rookie. Since then, it has been very hit and miss health-wise. And look, it's a fair concern. The Raptors just paid him a lot of money, and they are depending on him to play a healthy slate of games this year in order to help them figure out some of the stuff that they've just been not so good at, particularly half-court offense over the last handful of years. And again, it's a cop-out to talk about health, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that Alex McKechnie can work his magic as he did with Kawhi Leonard back in the day. I'm hopeful they can make it all work, but Ingram being on the floor, pretty essential to this team doing what it's going to want to do. And we don't yet have an idea of what that's all going to look like. I'm curious to hear on Media Day a week from now, sort of what the plans are with him. Are they going to limit his minutes in game? Are they going to keep him in that sort of 30-minute range as opposed to the 33, 34, 35 you might expect from a star? Are they going to try to rest him on back-to-backs, really load manage him in the early part of the season, keep him fresh for the season, for the later part of the season? Who's to say? Every player is different. Every player reacts to different treatment plans and management plans differently. They'll have a better idea than anyone outside of the team as sort of what the best course of action going forward is to help keep Ingram healthy. But it's a genuine, very real concern. And whether he's healthy or not is very much up in the air as it stands right now. Though I'm hopeful that, again, you get out of the New Orleans situation, you have Alex McKechnie on hand, you have a more motivated Brandon Ingram probably, like to just like be out there and actually like maybe like fight through some stuff and play through some stuff than he was for a Pelicans team that was going nowhere fast. maybe that all plays into him playing a healthy number of games. If he can play 60 games this year, like, you're laughing. And you may say only 60 games. That's not that many. Like, stars don't play full slates of games anymore. It just doesn't happen. The guys who play 75 plus games are the exception, not the rule at this point. If you can get 60 out of Ingram, I think you're thrilled. I think you'll help a lot. And then that leads to the sort of other uncertainty, which is, what does Ingram look like on the basketball team? What does the on-court fit look like? It's a thing we've not yet gotten to see yet, of course. We saw, like, we were hopeful, I guess, like, that we might see it at the back part of last season. I was thinking, hey, maybe you get 5-10 games with Ingram in there, with Barnes, with Quickly, with Barrett, with Pirtle, see how it all works. We didn't get that, of course, as the team was just trying to piss away the season as successfully as it could to try to optimize its lottery standing and all of that. We know how that all worked out. I think it's an open question still. We've been talking about the theoretical fit of this guy with the team for months now. I cannot wait until it's actual, like, on-court basketball we're watching and evaluating, as opposed to kind of, the sort of speculation we've done since the trade went down. But look, I think it's going to take, we've talked about this a lot, it's going to take adaptation from Brandon Ingram. It's also going to take adaptation from other guys in the team and from the Raptors coaching staff too, I think. How much is he going to adapt his game to the way the Raptors want to play? And inversely to that, like, how much should the Raptors cede control of the offense to him and change the way they play to sort of optimize the things he does well, which traditionally is a lot of stuff that, like, doesn't really fall into the Raptors system offense, right? Where it's really about the system as the shot creation engine, where everyone is working as sort of one combined whole. You have, the dribble handoff over here, a cut over here, a movement in this, an advantage here layered onto this advantage here, a cut wherever, right? Like, it all is sort of this sort of ecosystem that works in harmony. And look, the process has been good. This is another one of these sort of micro uncertainties, right? Is, can they turn good process into actual results? They've not done this so far under 2 years of Darko Rajakovic's offense, where, they play a fun looking style. They move the ball a ton. A lot of it is maybe just getting cardio in, all the player movement that they do. I do wonder if there is, some balance that Brandon Ingram brings to the table. Will the team be all right to cede some of that control, to sort of pass up some of the system, to just kind of let Brandon Ingram go to work? I think it might be necessary to really get the most out of him and to start to, have better results for this offense. I think there's balance to be found there. It's not like this is a team that Ingram's coming to that has, like, this grand history of offensive success with the way they've played to this point. I think they can play a very similar style with Ingram on the floor, with a healthy Emmanuel Quickly, and probably expect better results overall. But this is a team that, despite having a good shot profile, number 2 in the league in shots at the rim last season per clean the glass. That's great. Those are the most valuable shots in the game. They got there. That was awesome. But it just did not translate at all into anything productive offensively. They were 25th ranked offensive team last year. They shot 29th at the rim in terms of accuracy after being number 2 in overall rim frequency. That's not great. They shot very poorly from 3-point range, 23rd in the league in 3-point percentage, 29th in overall 3-point rate as well. I think Ingram can help with that. I think even if he's not bombing 7 threes a game, I do think his accuracy is very real. He's a good 3-point shooter off the pull, on the catch. And if he's taking 4 or 5 a game, that helps. Obviously, quickly playing a full season helps with the volume stuff as well, and probably the accuracy as well. There's a reason why they were terrible above the break, and it's mostly because their best above the break shooter only played 33 games last season and had a, sort of limited minutes load during those games. Some other stuff here where I just think, like, again, all this stuff points to they have good process on offense, but can they actually start to pull the results? I think Ingram can help in those regards, right? They were a bad rim finishing team. Ingram's a guy who's finished over 70% at the rim the last 2 seasons, has always been kind of high 60s, low 70s from the rim. That's great. Can they get him to the rim enough? Who's to say? Like, we'll have to see. I'm hopeful that in lineups where he has space around him, certain looks, there's an opportunity for him to get there. Can Scotty Barnes get to the rim more often than he did last year, right? I believe he had a career low rim frequency. He's always been a pretty good finisher at the rim, but can he get there more often in more of a play finishing role where maybe he's working as a roll man more often? Maybe he's working off cuts. Maybe he's someone who is attacking closeouts after after the defense has been compromised on one side of the floor, swing it to the other side, and then Scotty Barnes can go to work from there. these are all ways to get him to the rim more often where he's a good finisher. Again, I think there is a solid rim finishing team in here. The issue with this team in recent years has been they get the right shots and they just can't hit them. I also think, again, kind of going away from the system a little bit, can they be more of a team that leans on the mid-range with Brandon Ingram? Lean into what he does well. He's a damn good mid-range shooter. He can get to that shot whenever he wants. Is this a team that'll go from where they were 19th last year in mid-range frequency? Maybe they are a team that's like, 11th, 12th, because they've asked Brandon Ingram to kind of take those less desirable shots if you're just kind of plotting out a shot chart, but he's taking them because he's good at them and he's going to knock them down and uptake that effective field goal percentage overall. There's I think a balance to be found here between the sort of classic Brandon Ingram style and the egalitarian offense the Raptors want to play. I think Ingram can also benefit from playing within that style, right? I think he can benefit from being someone who can come off screens as like a movement shooter type, get ahead of steam going downhill, someone who just with extra catch and shoot load is going to score a lot just as a 3-point shooter, an above the break guy, a corner shooter, all that stuff. I think he can stand to benefit big time from the system the Raptors run and vice versa if they can kind of meet in the middle a little bit on the things each kind of brings to the table and does well. But yeah, it's a major question. And I'm curious what happens in crunch time situations. Does the system get abandoned for Brandon Ingram just to kind of go to work? Is that just the more simple, easy way to play basketball in those situations? I'm not against it. This is what the Raptors did for years. They were like a killer crunch time team for like a decade with DeMar DeRozan on the team, because in late in games, they just said, you know what, we're not really going to mess around with that whole passing thing where we turn the ball over and, introduce uncertainty into possessions. We're just going to give it to the guy we know can score and let him ride. And maybe that's how they operate late in games. Again, they got to find balance. How they find that, will they find that, all very uncertain. But I think that's the kind of blueprint here. That's what you're looking at, is what you hope to come out as the outcome here with the Brandon Ingram experience in Toronto. The health, the way he incorporates into the offense. We'll talk about the defense in a little bit. I think he's less party to that. He's way more about trying to fix the offense than anything else. But yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. When your best offensive player has never played a game for you, there's going to be some inherent uncertainty baked into the complexion of your team. We'll come back on the other side. I want to talk about the defense, which I don't really know what to do with, because they were really good for a long stretch last year, and maybe it was all fake. I don't know. We'll do that coming up in just 1 sec as we continue Uncertainty Day here on the pod. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. That's a pretty good deal. The thing is, I am someone who am tired all the time now because I have a newborn son at home. And I like coffee. I like to have a coffee. It's my preferred caffeine delivery system. But sometimes you get to that like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening little moment where you're just exhausted. I feel like I want to nap, but it seems too late to nap. And I just need a little bit of a boost to get through the day. And I don't want to go make a full French press. I don't want to grind beans. I don't want to go make a cup of coffee. I can just go have a 5 Hour Energy shot, get me through the rest of the day. And again, they come in all kinds of delicious flavors for you to go check out. Enough with the boring flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get your favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Go check them out. Back at it here on your Monday edition of Locked On Raptors, talking uncertainties surrounding your Toronto Raptors. And let's get to the defense, shall we? I don't know what to do with this, man. I've been thinking about it all summer long, and I don't quite know what to feel. They were 14th in defense last year. Not bad. You take that, especially as a team that for the previous season was bottom 5, stinky, no good on defense. Really nice step forward. It's hard to do too, right? Like one of the hardest things to do is go from being a terrible defense to a respectable defense. And the Raptors did that last year. Great. High fives all around, back pats, etc. Good stuff. From January 1st on, which is 49 games, more than half the season, the Raptors had the 7th best defense in the NBA. That's encouraging. I also don't really know what to do with that, because some of that was March basketball nonsense. And look, the March basketball they played, noisy on its own, also had noise within it because the Raptors were sitting certain guys at, they kind of staggering. Oh, okay, RJ's going to sit tonight. Quickly, Barnes will play this night. we're going to take them all out for crunch time in games where we're not trying to win down the stretch. Like, there's noise upon noise in that last 20 minutes. I think you just got to throw it all out in those last 20 games, that is. That doesn't mean that they weren't also still good at defense in January and February. They were a pretty good defensive team. They were in that sort of top 10 range. And so what do we do with that? I don't know. Like, there's a lot to kind of sift through. Look, they're probably not going to be a top 10 defense this year. I just don't think they have the roster talent 1 through 15 to go pull that off. But they do have Scotty Barnes, and Scotty Barnes is damn good at defense. And he is someone who I think is such a singular defensive game changer, such a singular defensive playmaker, a possession saver, that I think him plus the combination of this is a bunch of tryhards, like that's you got to take that into account. Defense is like half giving a damn, and boy, do the Raptors give a damn for the most part up and down the roster, especially the young dudes. You've got, of course, the high pickup point defense from the guards they played last year. I think Jamal Shedd's going to be a much improved defensive player as he learns the NBA whistle this season. I think Jacoby Walter, I'm really excited about as a guard harasser, someone who can be long, can throw up point guards, great footwork, skinny over screens, all that type of stuff. Big believer there. I think Colin Murray-Boyles is going to be a good defensive player from day one. There is some defensive talent here. I think Jakob Poeltl is like perfectly cromulent, a totally fine defensive backline center, especially paired with Scotty Barnes. Like, they've got talent here. They also have some interesting holes, especially on the wings, right? How much do you believe in RJ Barrett actually becoming a better defender? I'm not sure I'm there. He got called out last year by Scotty Barnes. He was better for like 2 weeks and then went right back to being RJ Barrett. I don't quite believe he's like this lockdown defender. He's a terrible off-ball defender. Brandon Ingram, I think, will be functionally helpful just because he's long, but I don't expect him to be someone who's like locking down opposing wings. I don't think you want him to do that for durability reasons, for having him ready to kind of go carry the day on offense reasons. Quickly, I think he's like totally fine. Average is slightly above average, even defender for that position. I'm not totally worried about him. I know people think he's bad at defense. I think that's pretty simplistic. I think in rotation, he's very good. I think he's a good shot contester. I think he's smart. I think he got much better with the high pickup point stuff and screen navigation last year as the season went along. I think he's a fine defensive player. And so what does that all equate to? There's a lot of good players, in particular, one excellent defensive player in Scotty Barnes, a few bad ones. It probably nets out to something like average, right? The big question is how much can Barnes and Poeltl, just as a backline tandem, carry the team to good defensive results? Last year, the answer was pretty far. Nearly 2,000 shared possessions. This is one of the more commonly used stats I've pulled on the podcast over the last few years, up with that location effective field goal percentage one, over the last year, that is. The nearly 2,000 possessions shared between Scotty and Poeltl last year. It's a big sample, a lot of minutes together. 110.4 defensive rating, which would have ranked third in the NBA over the full season behind the Thunder and the Magic. That's not nothing. Do I think it was a little bit of fool's gold, the team finishing as good as they did on the defensive end, having that stretch where they were like number one for a long stretch down the back part of the year? Yeah, that seems a little bit fool's gold, especially because of the teams they were playing in those final 20 games. Not serious basketball. They weren't even taking it seriously themselves, and they were playing it up against some of the worst teams that have ever been fielded on an NBA floor. The Wizards, the Nets. There's a whole lot of Wizards and Nets down the stretch, man. It was awful. But yeah, like, again, I think, as is the case with the last couple of years entirely with this team, you can take any little section of data and say, oh, that means nothing or that means everything. Like, all of it is very noisy. All of it should probably just be thrown in the trash. But if we're talking about big samples, like the one we have is Scotty and Poeltl on the floor made the team good at defense. They were sharing the floor with a lot of bad defenders too. They were out there with Grady Dick and RJ Barrett a lot. They were out there with Emmanuel Quickly before he kind of got his sea legs. They were out there with rookies, like a lot of rookies who are just bad at defense. Like, it's just the rule. Again, I think Colin Murray-Boyles is going to break that rule this year. I think typically I'm not someone who ever expects a rookie to be good at anything as a rookie, but I think defensively, Murray-Boyles, the hands, the strength, the multi-positional versatility, the smarts, it's all there for him to be a good defender from day one. If he can play a lot of minutes, like if he can play 20, 25 a night, all of a sudden I get really interested about the upside of the defense. But is that going to be possible? Can you play Colin Murray-Boyles that many minutes and maintain proper balance on the other end of the floor? You're going to have too many lineups where him and Barnes are on the floor, where there's not enough shooting. Are you going to be able to get by with like him, Barnes, and Pirtle, where there's like no shooting, but it's just size and rebounding and nastiness. And maybe that's enough to get by. I don't know. Well, you close that games that way, but maybe you kind of throw that at other teams in the middle of games, kind of throw them off kilter. I think there's a place for that. Again, my hunch is they're not going to be a top 7 defense all season long. It's a hard thing to do over the course of a full season. I guess they probably net out around league average, somewhere between like 12th and 17th. I think the tryhardism thing is very real. This is a team that gives a damn, and I think they're going to be further incentivized to give a damn this year when they're actually trying to win games, and the front office actually gives a damn, which it hasn't for the last couple of years. I also think I just believe in Scotty as a difference maker. I think he's that good. I think he's going to be in the mix for all defense this season, and I just think that's going to give them a floor on the defensive end. Now, do I think they have enough top to bottom defensive talent to really be truly elite over the course of the season? Probably not. Maybe if Ochai Agbaji snags RJ Barrett's starting job and you have him in there, maybe that helps the starters be a little more viable defensively, although Ochai himself has only been kind of okay, not great. Maybe Walter finds himself in the mix. But again, I think a lot of the closing lineups for this team, and we'll talk about the closing lineups in a sec, but if it's Barrett closing, if it's Grady Dick closing, who I think are the two most likely guys to close as that starting in that 2-guard spot, like that's probably going to be more offense tilted and make it more difficult on the defense to really put up great numbers. They'll just have to outscore their problems, which I think they'll probably be able to do in a lot of cases. But yeah, it all comes down to they're probably going to be pretty average, but it could go a lot of ways, right? If some certain guys take steps, this could be a team that knocks on the door of the top 10. If Scotty Barnes cannot be an otherworldly game changer and Jakob Poeltl takes a step back and the wing defense is a problem and quickly stagnates and the rookies can't get in because of the floor balance issues, or the rookies, the young guys, rookies included, then all of a sudden, you could be looking at a pretty bad defensive team. I think the range of outcomes is pretty high here. I think it's probably like anywhere between 10th and 22nd. This team will probably finish on defense. I'd probably whittle it down to 12th to 17th is kind of where I'd expect. But there's a lot of uncertainty with exactly how they're going to play. Are they going to switch more, right? Are they going to play a bit more of a sort of a multiplicitous style? They're going to try different things. Are they going to sort of tailor their defensive base coverage to something, to the matchup, to the personnel on the floor? Last year, Darko talked a lot about this. Like, they didn't change their defense really at all. They were just trying to play the same defense just to kind of get those principles schooled. And, they probably left some wins on the table as a result. I don't think they cared about that. But trying to win this year, will they try to throw out different coverages? Will they sort of be quicker to move to different looks? Will they try zoning up more often? That type of stuff. Like, they just were not a team that tried much on defense last year. The base stuff they did, the high pickup point stuff, Scotty is the back line of defense, all of that, all worked pretty well, but they didn't really flex their muscles in terms of different ways of playing. Think back to the championship Raptors, man. Like, that team could play a different type of defense every single time down the floor, just basically on command from Marc Gasol. That's like high-level advanced, some of the best defense we've ever seen. This team is not going to do that, but can they work in a little bit more of a multifaceted look? I hope they do. I like when teams throw different looks at other teams. Like, I think that's a smart defense, but we will get into that, I'm sure, as the season progresses. We're going to come back on the other side. I want to get to the last thing of a sort of layer of uncertainty here. And there's more than just these three probably, but they're the three big ones to me. It's the sort of push and pull of player development versus winning every single game, and how the front office mandate, the ownership mandate to win games and get back in the playoffs, which seems to be a thing, is going to impact that. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Monarch Money. And look, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. And whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, if you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table, which we don't need, because money is apparently really important to like having a life and stuff like that. That's why Monarch Money is here. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It's built for people with busy lives. You don't like doing admin. I hate doing admin, but Monarch is your command center. It does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Great if you have a spouse or a partner, you have multiple accounts, you have your own personal accounts, your work accounts, whatever. Maybe you have a shared account, you have a mortgage account, all of that. You can go and check it out and put them all in one spot on Monarch Money by checking it out. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Wrapping things up here on your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, talking uncertainties. Again, tomorrow on the show, Big V, Vivek, Jake will be along. We will do our things that are the most bankable about this Raptors team, stuff we feel good about coming through the way we expect them to come through this season. Looking forward to that. But let's continue with the uncertainty stuff. One other thing, we are a month out from opening night of the NBA season. On opening night, if you're in the Hamilton area or can hop on a train to get to the Hamilton area, clear the date. More details coming up soon, but got something fun cooking for opening night. A little watch along. And all the details of that will be revealed as we get closer to that time. But yeah, very much looking forward to what we got cooking for opening night. If you're in the Hamilton area or want to make the trip down, it's a lot of fun. It's close to the train, wherever we're going to be going. I promise you that. So you can take the train in. Either way, last thing we're uncertain about, or at least I'm uncertain about, is the relationship between player development and optimizing every single game to try to win this season. I think it's a fascinating sort of dueling of forces at play here because, look, I think the player development stuff, it's a really important component of this team, not just for like the current team, but just the franchise as a whole. This is a franchise that won a championship because it did player development good. And the last couple of years, they seem to have gotten back to that. It's probably been the thing Darko Rajakovic has done best. It's take player X and make player X better at basketball over the course of time. We've seen it with Grady Dick, who started off looking like he just like was a deer in headlights and now is someone who I think is a pretty interesting NBA player. You have Jacoby Walter took some serious strides over the course of just last season. We've even seen it with Scotty Barnes took, in the first season with Darko, had some really nice moves forward, really improved as a defensive player under Darko this past season. If the offense fell off, I think the offense is more context-based than anything else. But we've seen good player development stories happen with this team since Darko took over. And I'm curious if that can continue this year and also achieve the goal of win as many games as possible, which it seems like ownership wants. Seems like ownership is itching for that playoff gate revenue again, which, hey, fair enough. I am too. Give me playoff gate revenue. It doesn't go to me, but to know the team is getting it means the team is in the playoffs and I'm watching playoff basketball again. That sounds fantastic to me. Does that get in the way of the young guys, or can this work in harmony, right? I would assume they're going to start the season with Quickly, Barrett, Ingram, Scotty, Pirtle as their most used lineup. They're going to start games. They're going to close games. They'll get plenty of run because we've not seen them play together. And as much as I have my doubts about the fit of Barrett in that group specifically because of the bad defense and the lack of three-point shooting that other teams care about to defend, I'm more than willing to give it some run to see what's there because I do think they could get creative. They're more imaginative than I am when it comes to offensive basketball. I think Ingram kind of humming along near his peak could really help make that lineup sing, specifically on offense. I think it'd be a lot of fun, but that might not work. It might lose minutes. It might hemorrhage points. It might be just fine. And that might necessitate working in some of these younger dudes. And I don't think it's off the table that working in Grady Dick to close games or having Colin Murray Boyles sub in for Jakob Poeltl late in games for a more smaller switchy look or more smaller, good English, Sean, or whatever, working in Jacoby Walter in some of these moments. I think it can work where, you're getting these guys high leverage minutes in games that matter for a team that's playing games that matters, that it cares about for the first time in a couple of years. That's a big deal. That's the best way to get player development going, right? Last year was all fun and fine and dandy. You could play as much as you want in a team where nothing matters, but playing for a team that matters, assuming a role, even if it's a scaled down role from what some of these guys were operating in last year, I think it's going to be effective for them, helpful for them as developing basketball players. But again, if you get the sort of layer of uncertainty that comes in all of this, which is young players don't always improve the way you think they're going to, or at the pace you hope they will. If you don't get that linear development, if you don't get improvement from Grady Dick or Jacoby Walter, if Colin Murray Boyles is a classic rookie and just not ready from day one, all this stuff, then maybe you're forced to kind of play your top 5 guys more often. And maybe that's not really doing it for you. Maybe this becomes like a 6-player team where Ochai Agbaji is the 6th guy and you're really leaning on those dudes, Nick Nurse style, and it's just not getting you enough. I think for this team to kind of hit its ceiling, they probably need to get those hits from at least a couple of Dick, Walter, Murray Boyles, Shed, Mobo. If a few of those guys can really find their groove in, defined roles on this team, I think that's the best version of this team you can find. But I'm curious just how you get to that, right? Like if they're trying to win as many games as possible early on and they're dubious about, oh, can we really put Grady Dick in a closing situation to try to win this game? Is it worth losing a couple of games to get those developmental reps when you're trying to maximize every single win? And if you're Darko Rajakovic, can you afford to lose a bunch of games early on in the season trying stuff out with young guys? Do you have to maximize your wins early on just for job security reasons? All of that, right? Like, I don't think Darko's getting fired this year. I'd be very surprised. I think he gets the full season. It's his first full year of actually having the green light to coach a team that's trying to win games. I don't think you just fire him in December if the team starts poorly, but I wonder if that's in the back of his mind. And again, I think this all can work in harmony with one another. I think you can bring along the younger guys and it can help the team win more games. But again, there's no guarantee from young guys that they're going to do that and be ready to contribute to winning. It's a bit of a crapshoot. And so there is a world in which this team gets some stagnation from the younger guys and they end up looking like they're only 6 or 7 deep. Things get a little hairy, and this leads to the sort of big overarching uncertainty for this whole team, which is if all the things we've talked about here today, the Brandon Ingram of it all, the defense, the development of the younger guys, all of that, if this all goes unfavorably for the Raptors, if it goes the wrong direction, what does that mean for what comes next? I've been operating under the assumption that this season you're going to see some positive steps forward. Some guys improve their trade value. Some guys reestablish themselves a little bit. The team gets on the course and you kind of see, okay, this works, this works, this works. Maybe this 1 or 2 things don't work, but we can work on that. We can make moves to swap out guys for better fitting guys, whatever. I think that's probably how this season goes. But if everything goes poorly, the defense stinks. If Brandon Ingram plays 40 games and just can't get on the floor, if the young guys stagnate, then I think you're really looking at a year from now at like, what are we supposed to do with this? Because guys' trade value are probably, if they're low now, they're probably lower a year from now based on if everything goes wrong. What happens next? They have all their picks. That's great. Like, I don't think they're in like total dire straits while that's still true, but what comes next and how to get yourself out of a roster that doesn't make a lot of sense if things go horribly this year is a really, really huge piece of uncertainty kind of hanging over all of this. Fascinating year, man. I can't wait for it to get rolling. I'm very excited. A week out from Media Day. Should be a lot of fun. Lots of answers. We'll start to get to some of these questions, but we're going to leave it there. And I don't want it to be all doom and gloom because I do think there's a lot of stuff with this team that you're going to be able to set your watch to. We'll get into some of that stuff on tomorrow's show with Big V. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. All that good stuff. Always appreciated when you support the show. However it is you support the show, join the Discord. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to do as always. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday with an episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.